Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're decoding a seriously fascinating architectural schematic, hidden right in history. Our source material presents a highly calculated mathematical framework that links the 1st century directly to the 21st. We're going to take an impartial look at a theory arguing that the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD and a predicted future end times event are actually just two halves of a single, highly structured refining process. It's literally a blueprint and a mirror.
Okay, let's dive right into this structural case file. We've got 5 parts to unpack today: the Dual Ages blueprint, the first fire, the second fire, the millennial 7th day, and finally, the ultimate human destiny. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The Dual Ages Blueprint.
To really grasp this framework, you have to look at the sheer mathematical symmetry the source proposes. It's wild. The timeline is explicitly patterned after the life of Jesus Christ, anchoring the whole blueprint right at 33 AD. From there, a super precise math emerges. If you count exactly 33.5 years, think of it as a historical runway, it drops you right into the autumn of 66 AD or 66.5 AD. And why does that matter? Well, that was the exact moment the Great Jewish Revolt ignited, literally lighting the structural fuse of judgment. After that flashpoint, the nation went through exactly 3.5 years of brutal warfare, capping off with the absolute destruction of the temple by fire in 70 AD.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the author connects that 1st century blueprint straight to a 21st century mirror. They map that exact same 3.5-year trampling period directly onto the future, from 2066.5 to 2070 AD. Now remember, we are analyzing this purely as a structural framework. We're just looking at how this math predicts a future cleansing that perfectly mathematically mirrors history.
Moving on to Section 2, First Fire, Penal Dissolution.
So, to understand the future in this model, we have to look at what happened at the very end of that first blueprint in 70 AD. That's when Roman legions unleashed a terminating penal fire on the physical temple. That absolute destruction left the nation completely shattered and in spiritual exile. But here's the kicker. The text proposes the duration of this exile is also totally mathematical. It gives us the number 2000, representing exactly 2 prophetic days. That's 2,000 years of exile, perfectly calculated to set the stage for a future restoration. And the framework anchors this 2,000-year math directly in the source text, specifically Hosea 6:2. The scripture literally says, "After 2 days he will revive us, on the 3rd day he will raise us up." The author uses this verse as the master key to unlock the timeline, showing how this massive historical 2-day, or 2 millennia, wait was basically baked into the prophetic architecture from the very beginning.
Which brings us to a foundational legal concept in the author's argument. The framework posits that, in God's legal system, destruction only happens once to clear the field. Because that physical, terminating destruction already happened back in 70 AD, the predicted event in 2070 absolutely cannot be annihilation. Instead, everything after that initial destruction is all about resurrection, meaning the future fire is entirely about a purgative rebirth and regeneration. It's clearing the field for something new.
Which leads us to Section 3, Second Fire, Purgative Rebirth.
Now, what's really interesting here is what happens when the clock strikes the end of Adam's 6 days or 6,000 years of human misrule. The 2070 AD timeline commences. The source points to this incredible dual execution happening in a single fraction of a second. On the outside, externally, the armies of the Antichrist and the whole global system of rebellion are just physically dissolved. But simultaneously, there is an internal destruction happening within the surviving remnant of Israel. Their old blind Adamic nature is vaporized. Centuries of unbelief turned completely to ash in an instant.
The author connects these simultaneous events directly to specific scriptural triggers. The external execution, that physical dissolution outside the walls of Jerusalem, is framed as the final crushing of the serpent's head from Genesis 3:15 and the ultimate fulfillment of Zechariah 14:12. But inside the city, that internal execution is triggered by Zechariah 12:10. The remnant looks upon the one they pierced, and that sheer physical sight acts like a spiritual furnace. Their old, carnal mindset is vaporized instantly by a massive flood of profound, godly sorrow.
All right, let's zoom out a bit for Section 4, the millennial 7th day.
So, in the structural aftermath of this massive dual-action execution, the framework introduces the post-tribulation rapture. Right as that final fire falls at the absolute midnight hour, the church, having just finished its 42-month witness, is caught up and completely hidden in Jesus. The source draws a brilliant structural parallel here, matching this event perfectly to the 1st century elect who were safely hidden away in the rock fortress of Pella or Petra, right before the 70 AD fire fell. It's a direct mirror. With the church hidden and the earth finally purged, the timeline steps into an entirely new era, the seventh day. This is a glorious 1,000-year millennial Sabbath. It's presented as a highly structured realm where Jesus sits as the king on the throne, personally overseeing a newly regenerated earth for an entire millennium.
So, the crucial point is, how is this new millennial realm actually populated and governed? Well, the framework divides the inhabitants into two distinct groups. First, you have the glorified saints. These are the raptured and resurrected believers, both Jew and Gentile, who possess immortal spiritual bodies and literally rule and reign alongside Christ. Then you have the mortal remnant. This is the born-again national Israel, who still possess natural, fleshly bodies, and their job is to populate, farm, and rebuild the physical earth.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, the ultimate human destiny.
Okay, we've seen the math and we've walked through the framework, but what is the philosophical why behind all of this? Like, what's the whole point? The answer lies in a concept called telos, which simply means the ultimate purpose or end goal. The source argues this entire setup isn't just about moving pieces around on some prophetic chessboard. It's about the overarching destiny of human nature itself and how divine judgment ultimately functions for all of us.
According to the text, Israel serves as the universal prototype for all of humanity. Think about it. If the most stubborn of nations can have its hostility completely incinerated by judgment and then be reconstructed into a new man in a single day, well then the original curse spoken over Adam, "To dust you shall return," is actually salvific, meaning it's designed to save, not just to destroy. This isn't an exclusionary escape, it's a historical preview pointing to the ultimate destiny of Adam's entire line.
Let's move to the grand consummation and see how this all builds together. These groups stand at the dawn of the seventh day as living firstfruits, basically proving that the king's consuming fire is specifically designed to systematically process, refine, and reclaim the entire cosmos. The ultimate end goal is the complete fulfillment of the proto-evangelium, that very first biblical promise of redemption. It's a system designed to refine everything until, as 1 Corinthians 15 states, God is truly all in all. We've unpacked a seriously dense architectural timeline today, bridging the historical fires of the 1st century with the predicted purgations of the 21st. This framework presents a massive paradigm shift regarding the actual nature of divine judgment. So, I'll leave you with this to ponder. If the source is correct, and the ultimate fire is designed not to annihilate, but to refine, is destruction simply the first step of a universal rebirth?